So let me tell you about the day everything I thought I knew about physics, common sense and basic survival instincts got thrown out the airlock. My name is Kellis, and I have been an instructor at the Velarim 7 Multi-Species Military Academy for 12 cycles now. 12 cycles of perfect safety records, impeccable training outcomes, and absolutely zero incidents that required filing incident reports in triplicate. I was proud of that, really genuinely proud. Velarim 7 is not just any training facility, mind you. Oh no, this is the premier low-gravity combat and movement specialist school in this entire sector. We have graduated over 15,000 cadets from 47 different species. Our facility floats in a carefully maintained 0.3 Earth standard gravity well, which for most civilized species is the perfect environment for learning advanced three-dimensional movement tactics without, dying horribly. The walls of our grand entrance hall are lined with plaques, commendations and holographic recordings of our greatest graduates, commanders, fleet admirals, special operations legends, all of them trained here, in our controlled, safe, perfectly regulated environment. And then the Galactic Accord decided to expand the exchange program. You see, there is this new species that recently joined the greater community. Humans, they call themselves, from a planet called Earth. Which fine, whatever. Every species gets one planet to start with. The Accord thought it would be, quote, mutually beneficial for these newcomers to participate in our advanced training programs. I read the briefing files. I really did. Height, weight, basic physiology, atmospheric requirements, dietary needs. All standard stuff. They are bipedal, carbon-based, bilaterally symmetrical. Honestly pretty boring on paper. Their homeworld gravity was listed as 1.0 standard, which made them slightly denser than the pelthic delegates, but nothing extraordinary. The human cadet assigned to my training group was named Marcus Webb, 22 cycles old in his species years, previous education at something called Earth Defense Academy, no prior off-world experience, no specialized genetic modifications, no cybernetic enhancement, just a regular standard-issue human. When I announced this to my current cadet class, you should have seen their faces. Threx, my Saurian student, did that thing where his crest flattens completely against his skull, which means he is either terrified or deeply skeptical. In this case, probably skeptical. He hissed something about another soft-worlder who will wash out in week 1. Yana, the Kreshtik whose species evolved in variable gravity environments, just clicked her mandibles in that amused way of hers. She had been the top performer for 3 months running and clearly did not see this human as any kind of threat to her standing. And, yes, I know that name is hard for most species to pronounce, but that is your problem, not mine. Just bubbled something incomprehensible from inside his hydration suit. He is from an aquatic species and honestly treats everything in gas atmosphere as equally weird. So humans were just one more oddity. The general consensus among my cadets was clear. This human would be average at best, probably struggle with the low gravity adjustments like most newcomers, and definitely not cause any problems. I had no reason to doubt this assessment. None whatsoever. Marcus Webb was scheduled to arrive in 3 days, and I had already prepared the standard orientation package, the remedial movement courses, the safety briefings, all of it, everything by the book, everything perfect. I should have known better. I really, truly, honestly should have known better. Because when something seems too normal, too standard, too perfectly unremarkable, the universe has a funny way of proving you catastrophically wrong. But I am getting ahead of myself here. Let me tell you about the day Marcus Webb arrived. The transport shuttle touched down on Landing Bay 7 at precisely 0900 hours because of course it did. Punctuality is apparently a human thing too. I was standing there with my data pad, my perfectly prepared welcome speech and my carefully maintained expression of professional neutrality. 3 other instructors flanked me, because protocol demands proper ceremony for exchange students, even if we all secretly thought this was a waste of time. The shuttle ramp extended with a hiss of hydraulics and out stepped Marcus Webb. First impression, he looked exactly like his file photos, brown hair, cut short, average height for his species, maybe 1.7 meters, lean build, not bulky, not thin, just aggressively medium. He wore the standard issue cadet uniform in that weird Earth camouflage pattern that makes absolutely no sense in space, but whatever. Traditions die hard apparently. His eyes were brown too, and they scanned the landing bay with what I would call casual interest, like he was taking in the scenery at a museum, not arriving at one of the most prestigious military training facilities in known space. Cadet Webb, I said, stepping forward with my datapad held professionally. Welcome to Velarim 7. I am Instructor Kellis and I will be your primary trainer during your rotation here. Marcus smiled, and it was a genuine smile, not that political grimace that diplomats use. Thank you, sir. Happy to be here. His voice was steady, unremarkable, with that odd accent that all Earth Standard speakers have. He did not sound nervous, which was unusual for first-day arrivals, but maybe humans just hide it better. If you will follow me, I gestured toward the interior corridor. We will proceed to orientation where you will receive your gravity adjustment briefing and facility access credentials. He picked up his single duffel bag, just one bag, and fell into step beside me, not behind me like most nervous cadets, beside me like we were colleagues taking a walk. The orientation room was standard issue, white walls, holographic display panels, and adjustable gravity plates in the floor for demonstration purposes. I launched into my prepared speech about Velarim 7's .3 gravity environment, the importance of controlled movement, the dangers of overcompensation, all the things I had said 500 times before. Marcus nodded along, asked clarifying questions that were actually intelligent, and when I demonstrated the proper low-gravity walking technique, he watched with genuine attention. All right, I said, deactivating the holo-projection. Let us test your initial adjustment. The gravity in this room is currently set to .5 standard. I am going to lower it to .3. Our facility normal. Move slowly. Be careful. And if you feel disoriented, sit down immediately. I adjusted the gravity plates. Marcus took 3 experimental steps, wobbled slightly, overcorrected, and nearly face-planted into a wall. I caught his arm, steadied him, and felt satisfied. Good, normal, manageable. Do not worry, I said, in my most reassuring instructor voice. Everyone struggles at first. You will adapt within a few days. Marcus laughed, actually laughed, and said, yeah, this is going to take some getting used to. Famous last words, Marcus. Famous last words. Day 1 of actual training began at 0600 hours because apparently every military organization in the known universe agrees that mornings should be painful. I had Marcus join the rest of Charlie Group in Training Hall 3, which is basically a massive open space with padded walls, adjustable gravity zones, and enough safety equipment to survive a small asteroid impact. The hall can accommodate up to 50 cadets at once, but Charlie Group was a modest 15 students, all at various stages of their low-gravity certification. Marcus walked in wearing standard training gear, looking refreshed and entirely too cheerful for someone about to experience their first real drill session. Threx saw him first and did that head tilt thing that Saurians do when they are sizing up potential competition. So, you are the human, he said, his voice carrying that sibilant hiss his species is known for. Heard your people finally figured out how to leave your gravity well. Marcus just grinned. Yeah, took us a while, but we are slow learners. Yana skittered over, her 6 legs carrying her with that unnaturally smooth glide that always made me slightly uncomfortable. Kellis says you struggled in orientation yesterday, she clicked, her translator rendering it with what I swear was amusement. Do not worry. Most species need weeks to adjust properly. Appreciate the encouragement, Marcus said, and I could not tell if he was being sincere or sarcastic. Humans have this thing where their tone does not always match their words, very confusing. Just bubbled at him from across the room, which his translator unhelpfully rendered as greetings landwalker because finds everyone who does not live underwater equally ridiculous. I clapped my hands together, the sound echoing off the padded walls. All right, Charlie Group. Attention. Today we are running basic movement drills, lateral displacement, vertical orientation, and controlled momentum exercises. Standard safety protocols apply, which means if I see anyone attempting unauthorized maneuvers, you will be spending the rest of the day writing incident prevention essays. Groans echoed through the hall because apparently complaining about paperwork is also universal. We will start simple, I continued, gesturing to the marked lanes on the floor. Lateral movement across the hall, controlled speed, 3-point contact minimum at all times. Remember, in .3 gravity, every movement is amplified. Small pushes, controlled breathing, constant awareness. The cadets lined up. Marcus positioned himself near the back, probably hoping to observe first before attempting anything. Smart, actually. Threx went first, pushing off with his powerful saurian legs, gliding smoothly across the hall in a textbook perfect low-gravity stride. Excellent form, predictable trajectory, safe landing, exactly what I wanted to see. Yana followed, her multiple legs giving her absurd amounts of control, making the exercise look effortless. Show off. Went next, moving with this bizarre flowing motion that his species somehow pulls off naturally, like watching oil spread across water. Weird, but effective. Then came Marcus's turn. He positioned himself at the starting line, bent his knees slightly and pushed off. Too hard, way too hard. His body launched forward like he had been fired from a cannon. He rocketed across the hall, flailing his arms in what I can only describe as controlled panic, and slammed shoulder first into the far wall with a thud that made everyone wince. I was already moving toward him, ready to call for medical, already composing the incident report in my head, already regretting accepting this human into my training group. Marcus peeled himself off the wall, rotated to face us and started laughing. Not nervous laughter, not embarrassed laughter, actual genuine amusement. "Okay," he called out, rubbing his shoulder. "That was entirely my fault. Let me try that again." He pushed back toward the starting line, this time with slightly better control, though he still moved like someone who had never experienced low gravity in his entire life, which according to his file he had not. I assigned him remedial movement training with the beginners, figuring he would need at least 2 weeks to develop basic competency. I was wrong about that too, but not in the way I expected. By day 5, Marcus had stopped crashing into walls, which I considered a significant achievement worthy of note in my daily log. By day 7, he was moving through the basic drills with what I would call competent mediocrity. Nothing impressive, nothing terrible, just solid average performance. By day 10, something changed, and I still cannot explain exactly what happened. It was like watching someone suddenly remember how to do something they had forgotten. One moment Marcus was carefully, methodically pushing himself through a lateral movement exercise. The next moment he was flowing through the course like he had been born in low gravity. Not smooth like Yana, not powerful like Threx, but something else entirely, something I did not have words for. He started using momentum in ways that should not work, redirecting his trajectory mid-flight with tiny adjustments, catching himself on surfaces at angles that looked wrong but somehow functioned perfectly. Threx noticed it too. "The human is learning too fast," he hissed to me after one training session. It took me 4 weeks to reach that level of control. I had no good answer for him, so I just said something vague about different species having different learning curves, which satisfied nobody, including myself. Then came week 2 and the vertical combat course evaluation. The VCC is Valorem 7's signature training environment, a cylindrical chamber that extends 200 meters vertically, lined with platforms, obstacles, handholds and simulated combat zones. It is designed to test 3-dimensional tactical movement, situational awareness and controlled aggression in low-gravity environments. Standard protocol requires safety harnesses for all cadets below Level 3 certification, which was everyone in Charlie Group including Marcus. I gathered the cadets at the base of the cylinder, where the massive structure stretched upward like a throat leading to nowhere. The walls were a dull gray composite material, dotted with handholds, platforms jutting out at irregular intervals, and obstacles that could be reconfigured for different difficulty levels. "Today," I announced, my voice echoing in the vast space, "you will each complete a timed run through the VCC basic configuration. The goal is not speed. The goal is control, safe movement, tactical awareness, 0 incidents." I pointed at the harness station where automated arms waited to attach safety cables. "Everyone gets harnessed. No exceptions. No arguments. The harness will prevent falls, but it will not do the work for you. You still need to navigate the course properly." The cadets lined up, and one by one, the automated arms attached the harnesses with mechanical precision. Threx went first, completing the course in 18 minutes with textbook form. Yana finished in 15, because of course she did. Took 23 minutes but maintained perfect safety protocols throughout. Then Marcus stepped up to the harness station. He let the automated arms attach the safety cable, checked the connection points himself and then looked up at the towering course above us. His expression was, how do I put this, disappointed. No, not disappointed. More like a kid being told they have to wear floaties in a swimming pool. "Instructor Kellis," he said, his tone carefully neutral, "is there a certification level where the harness is not required?" "Level 3 and above," I replied, "which requires a minimum of 8 weeks training and passing 3 separate safety evaluations." "Why do you ask?" "Just curious," Marcus said, but his eyes were still fixed on the course above, calculating something I could not interpret. He started his run. The first 50 meters were solid, Good hand placement, controlled movements, proper safety awareness. Then he reached the platform transition section, and something shifted in how he moved. Marcus stopped treating the course like an obstacle and started treating it like a playground. He swung between platforms with this fluid confidence, used his legs to push off surfaces in ways that generated momentum I did not think was possible, and navigated the three-dimensional space like he could see trajectories that did not exist yet. His time was 12 minutes, 47 seconds. That was faster than some of my level 2 cadet. When he reached the bottom and disconnected from the harness, I walked over to him, datapad in hand, trying to keep my expression professionally neutral. Cadet Webb, I said slowly. Your file indicates your homeworld has 1.0 standard gravity. Yes, sir, Marcus confirmed, still slightly out of breath. And Earth's gravity is, specifically, how much stronger than our 0.3 environment here? Marcus thought about it for a moment, then said something that made my spine go cold. About 3 times stronger, sir. Why do you ask? 3 times. 3 times stronger. This human had spent his entire life in an environment with 3 times the gravitational pull we were training in, and nobody, not one single person in the entire Galactic Accord administration, thought that was worth mentioning in the briefing materials. I looked at Marcus, who was stretching his shoulders like he had just finished a light warm-up exercise, and realized with creeping horror that we had no idea what this species was actually capable of. None whatsoever. Week 2, Day 3, and I had started having very uncomfortable conversations with the facility safety coordinator about whether our equipment was rated for species with high-gravity world origins. Spoiler alert, it was not, because nobody thought we would need it. Marcus continued his training with Charlie Group, and I continued documenting his progress with increasingly concerned margin notes. The other cadets had stopped making jokes about humans being soft-worlders and started watching him with the kind of cautious respect you give to things that do not follow normal rules. Advanced cadets, those who had completed basic certification and moved into tactical operations training, got access to the sphere on Day 3 of every training week. The sphere is exactly what it sounds like, a massive hollow spherical chamber, 100 meters in diameter, with platforms, obstacles and training equipment distributed throughout the three-dimensional space in seemingly random patterns. It is beautiful, in a terrifying kind of way. The ultimate low-gravity free movement environment where cadets learn to think in directions that ground-based species do not have words for. Charlie Group had earned sphere access after completing their VCC certifications, which meant today was their first free movement exercise. I had given them the standard safety briefing 3 times, emphasized the importance of controlled movement, and assigned them all buddy check partners. Marcus was partnered with Threx, which seemed like a safe choice since Threx had excellent spatial awareness and a healthy respect for safety protocols. The sphere's entrance iris dilated open, revealing the vast chamber beyond. Cadets began filtering in, using handholds to pull themselves into the 0.3 gravity environment, spreading out to different starting platforms like seeds dispersing in wind. I remained at the observation platform with 2 other instructors, monitoring vitals, tracking positions and watching for any signs of trouble. The sphere had sensor arrays everywhere, automated safety systems and emergency response drones on standby. Nothing ever went wrong in the sphere. Our safety record was flawless. 15 minutes into the exercise, everything went wrong in the sphere. The alarm started as a low tone, then escalated to the urgent pulsing that means equipment failure. My datapad lit up with red warning indicators, and I immediately focused on the source. Platform 7 Delta, upper hemisphere, structural support compromise. My eyes snapped to the holographic display and my blood went cold. Yana was on Platform 7 Delta, 200 meters above the sphere floor, and the platform's primary support beam was failing. Stress fractures, metal fatigue, something had compromised the structural integrity, and the whole platform was tilting at an angle that would send her tumbling into open space. She was gripping the platform edge with 4 of her 6 legs, her body language screaming panic even across the distance. Emergency response protocol, I barked into my comm. Platform failure, 7 Delta, 1 cadet in danger. Deploy rescue team immediately. The response came back in that calm, professional tone that emergency coordinators use. Rescue team deploying. ETA 8 minutes, full safety gear required for high-altitude extraction. 8 minutes. I looked at the structural analysis on my datapad. The support beam had maybe 4 minutes before catastrophic failure, probably less. The other cadets had frozen in place, all of them staring up at the failing platform, all of them too far away to help, All of them properly trained enough to know that rushing in without equipment would just create more casualties. All of them except one. Marcus was on a platform roughly 60 meters below Yana, and he was staring upward with an expression I had never seen on his face before. Focused, calculating, but also something else. Something that looked almost like excitement. "Webb," I called through the comm system, my voice carrying through the entire sphere. "Maintain your position. Do not attempt unauthorized movement. Rescue team is en route." He looked toward the observation platform, made eye contact with me through the transparent aluminum barrier, and said something that made my heart stop. "Sir, I can reach her before the beam fails." "Negative," I said, putting every ounce of instructor authority into my voice. "You are not certified for high-altitude rescue. You do not have the proper equipment, and you will maintain your current position. That is an order." The support beam groaned, a sound that carried through the sphere like a dying animal, and Yana's mandibles were clicking in distress so fast they blurred together. Marcus looked at me, then looked at Yana, then looked at the distance between them. Then he reached down and started unlocking his gravity boots. "Cadet Webb," I said, my voice going from authoritative to genuinely terrified. "Do not do what I think you are about to do. That is not a suggestion, that is a direct order. Stop right now." He pulled off the first boot, then the second, and stood on the platform in just his standard training suit. "Sorry, sir," Marcus said, and his voice was calm, almost apologetic. "But 8 minutes is too long." And then he jumped. No, jumped is the wrong word. He launched himself upward like gravity was a polite suggestion he had decided to ignore. And my perfect safety record shattered into a million pieces as I watched a human cadet become something I did not have a classification for. I have seen a lot of things in my 12 cycles as an instructor at Velarim 7. I have seen cadets master impossible maneuvers. I have seen species-specific adaptations that defied conventional physics. I have seen training exercises that pushed the boundaries of what low-gravity movement could accomplish. I had never, not once, not ever, seen anyone move the way Marcus Webb moved in those next 45 seconds. He did not jump up, he exploded upward, his legs driving against the platform with enough force that the entire structure shuddered from the impact. In 0.3 gravity, that force translated into velocity that should not be possible for an unaugmented biological organism. He rocketed toward the sphere's upper hemisphere like a missile with a destination, his body position aerodynamic, his arms tucked close to reduce drag even though there was barely any atmosphere to drag against. Threx made a sound I had never heard a saurian make before, something between a hiss and a whimper. Translator just gave up and emitted a confused warbling noise. I was screaming into my comm, calling for emergency intervention, calling for automated safety systems, calling for anything that could stop what was happening, but everything moves slower than a human in low gravity apparently. Marcus covered 60 meters in less than 4 seconds. Then came the part that made me question whether physics was even real anymore. He reached a support column, one of the massive structural beams that kept the sphere stable, and instead of grabbing it to slow down, he used it to redirect. His feet hit the column at an angle, absorbed the impact with bent knees that should have shattered under the force, and pushed off in a new direction like the column was nothing more than a stepping stone. He was not moving in a straight line anymore. He was plotting a 3-dimensional course through the sphere's obstacles, using every surface as a launch point, every structure as a navigation reference. Equipment storage rack, kickoff, change direction by 15 degrees. A training platform occupied by 2 terrified cadets. Touchdown for a fraction of a second. Redirect upward again. A suspension cable meant for safety harnesses. Grab it mid-flight. Use the tension to slingshot around a obstacle cluster. He was not fighting gravity. He was having a conversation with it, negotiating terms, and apparently gravity was losing the argument. The other instructors on the observation platform were frozen, their species-specific expressions of shock rendering them into living statues. One of them, an elderly pelthic named Suran, who had been teaching here since before I was born, whispered something in his native language that my translator refused to process, probably because it was a prayer. Marcus was 150 meters up now, closing the distance to platform 7 Delta with velocity that kept increasing instead of decreasing like it should. The support beam groaned again, louder this time, and I could see stress fractures spreading across its surface like veins of lightning frozen in metal. Yana saw him coming, her compound eyes tracking his approach, and her mandibles stopped clicking in panic and started clicking in confusion, because what was approaching her did not make sense in any framework she understood. 20 meters away, and Marcus grabbed an overhead handhold, used it to kill most of his upward momentum, rotated his body with core strength that should require cybernetic enhancement, and pushed off toward the failing platform at a controlled angle, 10 meters away, and the support beam gave its final warning, a metallic shriek that meant structural failure was seconds away. Marcus covered those final 10 meters in a diving grab that would have been suicidal for anyone with a normal sense of self-preservation, his arms outstretched, his trajectory calculated with precision that suggested either incredible luck or terrifying competence. He hit the platform just as the support beam snapped. The entire structure tilted. Yana lost her grip, and for one horrible moment I thought I was about to watch two cadets fall 200 meters to the sphere floor. Marcus's left hand clamped onto the platform edge, his fingers finding purchase on the composite material with grip strength that should not be possible. His right arm wrapped around Yana's thorax, catching her mid-fall, and then he was holding both of them against gravity with one arm while his other hand maintained their only connection to safety. The broken support beam tumbled past them, spinning slowly in the low gravity, a 2-ton piece of metal falling like a feather in slow motion. For 3 seconds Marcus just hung there, supporting his own weight plus Yana's mass, which was not insignificant given her species' exoskeleton density, with one hand gripping a platform that was no longer properly anchored. Then he looked down, and I swear on every star in this sector he smiled. Not a grimace, not expression of strain, an actual smile like he was enjoying himself. He pulled them both up onto the tilted platform with one smooth motion, muscles working under his training suit in ways that suggested human physiology did not follow the same rules as everyone else's. "Yana," he said, his voice somehow calm and steady despite the insanity of the last 45 seconds. "I am going to need you to hold on to me. We are going down the fast way." Yana's translator rendered her response as "What is the fast way?" but I suspect the actual meaning was closer to "Please no. I want to file retirement papers." Marcus repositioned his grip, waited for Yana to wrap her legs around his torso and then jumped off the platform. Correction. He did not jump off, he dropped off, and used every single obstacle, platform and structure between them and the sphere floor as velocity control points. Watching him descend was like watching a meteor with purpose, bouncing off surfaces with calculated precision, redirecting momentum with each contact, turning a 200-meter fall into a controlled descent that somehow impossibly ended with both of them landing gently on the sphere floor in a perfect 3-point stance. Marcus set Yana down carefully, made sure her legs were stable, and then looked up at the observation platform where I was having what I can only describe as a complete professional crisis. "Sir," he called up, his voice slightly winded but otherwise normal. "Do you have a bandage?" I scraped my elbow on that last platform. A scraped elbow. He had just defied death, physics, and common sense, and he was concerned about a scraped elbow. I realized something in that moment, something profound and deeply unsettling. Humans were not fragile. They were not weak, and they definitely were not average. They were just very, very good at pretending to be normal until the moment when normal stopped working. The facility commander arrived 14 minutes after the incident, which was impressive given that her office was on the opposite side of the station, and she had probably violated several speed regulations getting here. Commander Vorish was a Corinthian, which meant she stood nearly 3 meters tall, had 4 arms that she used for dramatic gesturing when angry, and possessed exactly 0 tolerance for nonsense. She had run Valorum 7 for 20 cycles with absolute authority and an unblemished safety record that I had just personally destroyed. She was not happy. Marcus sat in the briefing room still in his training suit, the scraped elbow now covered with a standard medical patch. Yana sat beside him, her mandibles occasionally clicking in what I had learned to recognize as residual shock. I stood against the wall, my datapad clutched in my hands like a shield, waiting for the professional consequences of my failure to prevent this disaster. Commander Vorish's forearms were crossed in a pattern that meant she was cycling through multiple levels of anger simultaneously. "Cadet Webb," she said, her voice carrying that resonant quality that Corinthians use when they want to sound impressive and terrifying. "Do you understand that you violated 16 separate safety protocols, ignored a direct order from your instructor, and performed an unauthorized high-altitude rescue without proper equipment or certification?" "Yes, ma'am," Marcus said, and he had the decency to look at least somewhat apologetic. "Do you understand that your actions could have resulted in 2 fatalities instead of 1 injury? That you endangered not only yourself but also Cadet Yana, and that you have created a documentation nightmare that will require reports filed with 7 different oversight committees?" "Yes, ma'am," Marcus repeated, his tone respectful but not particularly intimidated. Commander Vorish uncrossed two of her arms and leaned forward across the briefing table, her eyes locked on Marcus with an intensity that had made senior officers confess to crimes they had not committed. Then explain to me in clear and specific terms why you thought jumping 200 meters through a complex obstacle field without safety equipment was a remotely acceptable decision. Marcus was quiet for a moment, organizing his thoughts, and when he spoke, his voice was calm and matter-of-fact. Because Cadet Yana had approximately 3 minutes before structural failure, the rescue team had an 8-minute ETA, and the math did not work in her favor, ma'am. I assessed the situation, calculated the risks, and determined I had the physical capability to reach her in time. Physical capability, Commander Vorish repeated slowly, each syllable dropping like a hammer. You are a first-rotation cadet with 2 weeks of training. Yes, ma'am. But I am also from a 1.0 standard gravity world, which in this 0.3 environment means my effective strength and control ratios are significantly enhanced. The room went very quiet. Commander Vorish straightened up, her expression shifting from anger to something closer to confusion. Explain that statement, Cadet. Marcus glanced at me, then back at the commander. Earth's gravity is approximately 3 times stronger than Valorum 7's environment. My muscles, bones, and cardiovascular system developed in that higher gravity, which means here I am operating at roughly 1/3 of my normal resistance load. He said it so casually, like he was explaining that water was wet or that stars were bright. On Earth, he continued, I can jump maybe half a meter vertically under full gravity. Here, that same muscle output launches me 15 meters or more. My reaction time feels faster because my body is not fighting against as much gravitational pull. Movements that would be difficult at home are, well, easier here. Commander Vorish turned to look at me, all 4 of her eyes focusing with an expression that clearly asked, did you know about this? I shook my head mutely, because what was I supposed to say? That I had read his file and somehow missed the part where humans were basically organic gravity-defying machines. Cadet Webb, Commander Vorish said slowly, turning back to Marcus. Are you telling me that for your species our advanced low-gravity training environment is what? Recreational? Marcus thought about that for a moment, his face scrunching up in consideration. I would not say recreational exactly, ma'am, more like comparable to swimming. You know, when you are underwater and movement works differently. But your body adapts pretty quickly because you are still using the same muscles, just in a different resistance environment. Swimming. He had just compared our premier military training facility to a swimming pool. Yana's mandibles clicked once, sharp and loud, and her translator rendered it as that explains so much. Commander Vorish sat down heavily in her chair, which creaked under her mass, and pressed 2 of her hands against her face in what I recognized as the universal gesture of someone reconsidering their entire career. Instructor Kellis, she said, her voice muffled behind her hands. Please tell me you have been documenting all of this. Every day, ma'am, I confirmed, holding up my datapad like evidence at a trial. Complete training logs, performance metrics, and approximately 47 margin notes that say some variation of how is he doing that. Commander Vorish lowered her hands and looked at Marcus with an expression that mixed respect, concern, and the dawning realization that everything we thought we knew about training protocols might need revision. Cadet Webb, she said finally, you are simultaneously the best and worst thing to happen to this facility in 20 cycles. You saved a fellow cadet's life, which is commendable. You also violated enough regulations to keep me in paperwork for a month, which is considerably less commendable. Yes, ma'am, Marcus said. For what it is worth, I am sorry about the paperwork. Training resumed the following week with what Commander Vorish called updated safety considerations, which was official speak for we have no idea how to handle humans, but we are going to try anyway. Marcus received a formal reprimand for violating safety protocols, which went into his permanent file right next to a commendation for exceptional courage under pressure, which I am pretty sure gave the administrative staff a migraine trying to process. More importantly, he received a new set of training parameters specifically designed for high-gravity world species, which was hilarious because he was the only cadet from a high-gravity world, so really they were just Marcus Webb rules wearing a fancy bureaucratic disguise. The other cadets treated him differently after the incident. Not with fear exactly, more like the cautious respect you give to natural disasters that happen to be friendly. Threx stopped making comments about soft-worlders entirely and started asking Marcus for movement technique advice. Yana followed him around like he was some kind of protective talisman against danger, which Marcus found embarrassing and everyone else found extremely reasonable. just bubbled something that translated as "landwalkers are insane," and went back to his aquatic meditation exercises, because honestly nothing surprised him anymore. The facility had to redesign course difficulty limits, adding what they called advanced high-gravity adaptations, which basically meant making everything 3 times harder so Marcus would stop completing exercises in half the expected time. The engineering team was not thrilled about the extra work, but they admitted it was technically interesting to design obstacles that challenged someone who treated normal gravity like a minor inconvenience. Word spread through the multi-species military academy networks faster than light-speed communications. Other facilities started asking questions, requesting data, wondering if they needed to prepare for more human cadets. The bureaucratic nightmare expanded exponentially, and somewhere in administrative office I imagine someone was crying into their filing systems. I became something of an accidental expert on human training requirements, which led to me giving 3 presentations to facility commanders across the sector, all of which boiled down to they are stronger than they look, faster than they should be, and completely unaware that they are terrifying. That last part was the strangest thing to explain. Marcus genuinely did not understand why everyone treated his rescue of Yana like it was exceptional. To him it was just basic risk assessment and physical capability matching. On Earth, apparently this kind of thing happened regularly in their emergency services, their sports, their casual recreational activities. They had competitions where humans jumped over obstacles, climbed vertical surfaces and threw themselves through the air for fun. For fun. Their children played games that involved launching themselves off elevated surfaces and catching each other mid-fall. Their standard military training included carrying heavy loads across long distances in full gravity, which meant their soldiers were essentially strength training in conditions that would cripple most other species. I had spent 12 cycles thinking I understood physical limitations, training protocols, and safety requirements. And then one human cadet showed up and revealed that all my assumptions were based on species that evolved in reasonable gravity wells. Marcus completed his rotation at Velarim 7 with top marks in every category. Not because we made it easy for him, but because we literally could not make it hard enough without creating courses that would be lethal to every other species. On his last day he shook my hand with that human custom of gripping palms, and his grip was gentle, controlled, carefully modulated so as not to cause damage. "Thank you, Instructor Kellis," he said, genuine warmth in his voice. "I learned a lot here. Really appreciate the experience." "You are welcome, Cadet Webb," I replied, and meant it despite everything. "Though I think we learned more from you than you did from us." He laughed at that, shouldered his single duffel bag, and headed toward the departure shuttle. I watched him go, updated his final training report, and then noticed a message in my inbox from the Academy administration. Subject line read, "Incoming exchange student. Human designation Jessica Webb." The message noted that Jessica was Marcus's younger sister, that she had applied for advanced tactical training, and that her file indicated she was considerably more athletic than her brother. I stared at that message for a long time. Then I forwarded it to Commander Vorish with a single line attached, "We are going to need bigger safety margins." Her response came back in under a minute, just 2 words, "Much bigger." Somewhere in the facility I heard the engineering team already starting to redesign the training courses, their resigned sighs echoing through the ventilation systems, and I realized with absolute certainty that humans were not just another species joining the galactic community. They were an entire recalibration of what we thought possible, wrapped in friendly smiles and casual attitudes, completely unaware that they made the rest of us feel like we had been training in easy mode our entire lives. Marcus Webb had been an introduction, a preview, a gentle warning that the universe was bigger and stranger than our careful regulations had accounted for, and his little sister, who was apparently more athletic, was arriving in 6 weeks. I pulled up my retirement fund calculator, stared at it for a moment, then closed it and opened the training schedule instead, because honestly, how much stranger could it get? Somewhere in the universe, I imagine reality itself laughed at that question, because apparently I still had not learned the most important lesson. Never ever ask how much stranger things can get when humans are involved. They will always find a